Episode 2 picks up right where Episode 1 left off, after the New Year's Eve broadcast. Bradley starts walking her hotel room, but waiting for her in the lobby is Corey, and she wants to breeze right by him, but he says, no, I have to tell you something. You're already mad enough, and this is going to get out, so I'll tell you now face to face. We're bringing Alex back. We're going to get a deal done quickly, and we're going to hammer it out and get her on air as soon as possible. And Bradley doesn't say anything. She only gets pissed off at Corey when he says everything's going to work out, because she starts ripping him for being her boss and not her friend, because she actually thought he was a friend. And right before she gets in the elevator, she tells him, you know, I'm not feeling so well after being outside all day. I think I'm going to call in sick. And 3 weeks later, she's done that. She's called out sick for 3 straight weeks. But Bradley is the least of Corey's problems. Even 3 weeks later, he's got this wrongful death suit to deal with. And as he's talking to legal about what to do, they're proposing that they just hammer this out in court, drag it out, scare Hannah's parents, but Corey says no, just give them what they want. We already have enough bad press as it is, so just pay them and end it. After legal leaves, he starts working on UBA Plus, but Stella walks in because, unannounced, Alex is showing up with her agent. She tried to sneak in covertly, but she does end up getting noticed. She just wants to see her new office, which, by the way, it's huge. Her agent is a little concerned, though. The deal isn't done, and he knows that UBA wants to do a big rollout when they announce this. They don't want this leaking out. So he reminds Alex, if anyone asks, you're just here seeing old coworkers, and that's it. So Alex and her agent are just chilling in this empty office when Corey and Stella walk in, and Corey goes full-on exec. I mean, you would have thought he just got laid. He is glowing, laying it on pretty thick. Stella, on the other hand, is pretty reserved. I mean, it's like yin and yang. Corey ends up mentioning how they can't wait to hear about Alex's ideas for her primetime show, but her agent tells them, well, we'll give you the full pitch once the deal is closed. When they bring up potential producers, he says the exact same thing. We'll discuss it when the deal is closed. One of the UBA employees runs in and interrupts all of them and says, Alex, you got to run down to the studio. But Stella says, don't. And Alex is a little taken aback, and Corey smooths it over by saying, Alex, you're one of the few good things going on for us right now. So we want to keep this under wraps until we tell the world that you're coming back. That's going to be good for you, it's going to be good for us, and it's going to be good for the show. Alex is okay with that, but she does question if her and Bradley should meet about this PR blitz, and Corey suggests that maybe she reach out to Bradley. Alex ends up asking if Bradley's excited, and Corey ends up lying and says she's so excited. As they're getting ready to leave, Corey suggests that maybe Alex and Stella get together at his place the next night just to hammer out some details. They all agree it sounds good, and Corey ends up leaving them back in the empty office. But right before Alex's agent leaves, she asks, did you get a chance to see an advance copy of Maggie Brenner's book? And Alex's agent, Doug, tells her, no, they're keeping that pretty tight-lipped, but I wouldn't worry about it. You're going to look fine. And by the way, you have your own book, and if people want the story, they can get it from the horse's mouth. Alex then gets in the elevator to leave, but as she's doing so, she accidentally hits the floor to go to the studio just out of muscle memory. And curiosity gets the better of her, and she starts walking around a little bit, but she starts getting recognized, having a little bit of a panic attack. So she goes in her old dressing room, which just so happens to be Eric's dressing room at the moment. And she goes to leave once she sees that Eric is in there, but he says, no, I insist, stay. She congratulates him on getting nights, and he congratulates her on coming back, but she's a little surprised because nobody's supposed to know that. He then moves the conversation, though, to Bradley, saying, I guess you guys didn't end on the best note. And she says, well, did Bradley tell you that? And Eric says, no, it's just a feeling I got. Alex, though, tells him, no, we're good. And Eric starts poking around on how to get Bradley to talk to him again, because Eric still being on the morning show is one of the many reasons why Bradley hasn't come back to work the last 3 weeks. He asks for some advice, but Alex tells him, I think you would know more. I mean, you've worked with her for 6 months? He starts complaining about how it's really hard to be a good friend to her, and Alex just stands up and says, where do you get the right? I mean, me and Bradley worked together for 3 weeks, and it was 3 difficult weeks, and I'm sure she told you about that if you truly are friends, but if you can't get a hold of her or get through to her after working with her for 6 months, then maybe you're not friends. Maybe the problem here is you. And then she leaves. As she was leaving, she did end up avoiding both Daniel and Mia. And Mia just went to check on Daniel because he once again got passed over. And not only did he get passed over, but they're bringing in the woman who really screwed him over in the first place, and Alex. But then Daniel starts asking about the coronavirus because the first case in the U.S. just hit, and he thinks that they should devote some time to it. But Mia reminds him it's kind of a depressing topic. There's always something going on, and there's a lot of news already that they have to pack into the show. Mia, though, then changes the subject to the dinner at Corey's. Even though Corey wanted it to be intimate, it's not. Pretty much every anchor's been invited at this point. And Daniel doesn't want to go, but he doesn't really have a choice. But Bradley is still holding out, just sitting in a hotel room. She's gone out once to get ice cream, but that's it. she needs some suggestion on how to get through to Alex. So she calls the one person that knows Alex better than anybody, Chip. And when she tells Chip that Alex is coming back, he's really surprised. Bradley starts venting to him about the fact that it just feels like they're calling in Bradley's big sister to clean up her mess. And Chip tells her, you know that's not the actual case, right? UBA's been a dumpster fire for a while. But once again, Bradley's called to get some insight on who Alex is, and Chip tells her that Alex can make you feel like you were the most important thing in the world. And then you turn around and she'll push you right off a cliff. And she'll justify it to herself because deep down, Alex is in it for Alex. Alex is extremely competitive. And this is exactly how Chip feels. That Alex made him feel like he was the greatest thing in the world, but then when push came to shove, she pushed him off that cliff. And he vows that if he ever sees her again, he's going to have some choice words for her. She then hangs up the phone and needs to decide if she's going to this dinner tonight, which isn't very far for her to go. It's literally the floor up. Bradley's still on the fence about it. She had a pretty contentious conversation with her agents about going back to work, and she just seems to have stuck her foot in the ground and she's not moving. And one of the reasons why is she feels like she has a lot of leverage in this situation. UBA is about to roll out a big PR blitz with the return of Alex Jackson for Alex and Bradley. She is the Bradley. But her agent warns her, you might have leverage in this situation, but remember, if you squeeze, then the people that you're squeezing are going to remember that. And the first chance they get, they're going to squeeze back harder. But Bradley is really the only question mark that this dinner has. And that's when Corey gets a phone call from Sybil, who's his boss. And she is enraged because Bradley was photographed by Page Six going out and getting ice cream, and she doesn't look sick at all. She's making UBA look foolish, and Sybil commands Corey to fire her immediately. And Corey doesn't really have a choice, so he just, to get her off the phone, says, okay. But he's not ready to give up on the Bradley train just yet. He heads downstairs to ask her, are you coming up to this thing? She doesn't really answer them, though, when he asks that question, and he gets tough with her, saying, okay, well, if you are coming, then you need to put your big girl pants on. I know you think you're sticking it to everybody, but in reality, you're only sticking it to yourself. And I know you don't believe this, but I went through a lot of trouble to get Alex back for you. Because if you could actually just get the anger out of your way, you'd realize that Alex coming back is good for the show, good for her. More importantly, it's good for you. Because it's going to be incredibly successful. It's going to give you the green light to do all the things you've ever wanted to do, including serious news stories. So, trust me, if you don't make this work for you, you're only screwing yourself. And she comes back with a snarky response, and he just shakes his head and leaves, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. But a little while later, to Corey's surprise, Bradley shows up. Bradley and Alex have a super long, super awkward hug. But then they split up. Bradley starts talking to Mia about her, quote, sickness. And Alex goes to talk to Daniel, because Daniel was really the only person in the room who was cold to her when she showed up, and Alex knows why. Alex tries to apologize, saying she's a different person now, but the damage is done as far as Daniel's concerned. He tells her, I turned down co-anchor at YDA because we made an agreement. And even though Alex didn't know that, the very next morning, Alex decided to go on an impromptu crusade with a woman that she was supposed to be firing. And while Daniel's glad that Alex said what she said about Fred, he's pissed off because he didn't want to be the collateral damage because of it. Alex realizes that she really hurt Daniel and tells him, anything I can do to help you move forward, I will do it. You deserve a lot better than you've gotten. But I can't turn back time. All I can promise that I can do is better. But Daniel says, apology not accepted, and walks off. Good news for Alex, though. She doesn't have to sit next to him at dinner. Bad news is, she has to sit next to Bradley. Since they do work at a news station, news conversations start popping up. Most people are downplaying the coronavirus, just saying, and this is going to shock you out there, quote, it's nothing worse than the flu. Daniel, though, keeps saying, I don't think we should joke about this. I mean, people are really getting sick, and someone should cover it. Alex, who is trying to be better, says, well, then let's get you on a plane. But Daniel was planning on going to Iowa for the caucus. And Alex volunteers Bradley to do it because of the fact that she likes serious news stories. But Bradley somehow gets offended by the fact that Alex volunteered her to do something that she would actually want to do. Daniel, though, gets the conversation back on track by saying, I'm not saying that I need to cover coronavirus. I'm saying that we as a station need to start covering the coronavirus. And Stella reminds everybody that a disease spreading isn't exactly compelling TV. Boy, will she be wrong in a few months. And then leave it to the weatherman, who comes in hot like a heat wave. We just need to get this sham of an impeachment trial over. Corey can kind of tell that he probably should break this up before there's an all-out brawl, so he makes a toast to the return of Alex and the return of Alex and Bradley, laying out their entire PR blitz, which is a lot. After dinner, though, Alex feels like Bradley's being a little standoffish, so she walks up to her and asks her, is everything okay? And Bradley tells her yes, but it's not believable. And when Alex suggests that they get together, Bradley says, yeah, contact my assistant. So there's two people that Alex is going to need to mend some fences with. She ends up heading out, but as she's walking to the elevator, Bradley chases after her, and the two women have it out right there in the hallway. Bradley telling Alex that since she's been gone, things have changed, and things are going to be different on this new show. She's not going to be her little sister anymore. She's going to be her equal and her partner. But really, the basis of this argument has to do with the fact that Bradley feels hurt by the fact that Alex didn't really reach out to her after she left the show. She called her, but it was a week after she told the network she wasn't coming back. And since then, she hasn't talked to her at all. Bradley screams at Alex, everybody in that room is out for themselves, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to compete with you for the best stories. And Alex yells back, do it! That's what you should do. Don't roll over. You should never roll over. That's literally the job. Just do the job. Sorry I didn't call you. We worked together for a month. We don't owe each other a thing. But then Bradley asks, what about Chip? Do you owe him anything? Because I talked to him, and he said he hasn't heard from you either. And how long did you work together? 15 years? Sounds like a great thing to have a friendship with you, but congratulations on your mega deal, Alex. But a few days later, Alex realizes that Bradley is right, so she goes to pay Chip a visit. And even though Chip talked really tough on the phone, saying, if I ever see her again, I'm going to have some choice words, he doesn't. And when Alex asks him to come back and be her producer, he says, when do I start? Life at UBA, though, starts to go back to normal. Bradley goes back to work, putting on a good face with Eric. They even send Daniel to Wuhan. And then there's the matter of Hannah's settlement. Corey had told legal, get it done, but he gets a phone call saying, we can't. They won't settle. Their number is astronomical. They're clearly trying to send a message. They want $119.2 million. And Corey knows exactly what that number is. It's the number that they paid Fred Micklin to walk away. And speaking of Fred, he's been trying to get in touch with Mitch Kessler, who is just flying under the radar, living in a chateau in Italy. Mitch, though, keeps sending his call straight to voicemail, and eventually Fred actually shows up, but Mitch slams the door in his face. And Mitch has done a pretty good job of flying under the radar, although one day, as he's just sitting in a square eating gelato, a 21st century liberal crusader, and I can say that because I'm a liberal soy boy, walks up to him and starts screaming at him in the middle of the square, saying how he doesn't have the right to be there. He's ruining her gelato. He's ruining her vacation. And Mitch is taking it in, but asking her to keep her voice down. Gets to the point where everyone's head is turned watching this go down. And one local walks over to her and says, you need to stop. And the Crusader says, if you have any idea what this man did, and the local cuts him off and says, you mean like if I knew that this man was Mitch Kessler? He's just sitting here eating his gelato. I didn't see him come and try to grab you. Why are you kicking him when he's down? I think this is more about you. And that's when the local notices that, yeah, it is, because her best friend is filming this interaction, and she can't wait to post it to social media. The local ends up scaring the liberal crusader back to her avocado toast. And Mitch, who is mortified, ends up sneaking out, walking away, not wanting any more unwanted attention his way. But the local ends up chasing after him. She introduces herself. Her name's Isabella, and she's kind of in the media, but not really. But she did it to pick Mitch's brain. So he reluctantly gives her a number, and they agree to meet up later so she can do that. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. But once again, thank you for checking out this recap.